A very good evening and many thanks for joining us here on Rwanda Television. Now, as we begin our edition tonight, these are our headlines. President Paul Kagame reiterated that Rwanda refused to be held back by the tragic and destructive past the country went through, but rather positioned itself to become a premium destination for global travel.
Tourism service providers say there has been a steady increase in establishing needed infrastructure, hence contributing to the development of this sector. A very great evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us on Rwanda Television News tonight. My name, as always, is Sam Kalisa.
And mine, Martina Vera.
How are you doing, Martina?
I'm very good. How are you today?
Very, very great. It's a tourism day, it's a tourism week as we celebrate conservation.
Again, what a day to be Rwandan. And as we begin our bulletin, we'd like to inform you that President Paul Kagame reiterated that Rwanda refused to be held back by the tragic and destructive past the country went through, but rather positioned itself to become a premium destination for global travel. He made the remarks on Thursday while speaking at the official opening of World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, which convened more than 1,200 participants in the global tourism industry. We have more on this report.
But we vowed not to let
President Paul Kagame told participants that Rwanda went through a horrific past nearly 30 years ago at the watch of the international community, but the country refused to be held back by this bitter history. He noted that the country committed to building a safe place for everyone and identified tourism as a key driver for economic growth, and the results have not been disappointing.
Conservation is a big part of our strategy to build a more sustainable future. We are delighted that the Nyungwe National Park is now a World Heritage Site. We're also investing in the infrastructure and skills to host major sporting events such as Basketball Africa League. Globally, the travel and tourism industry has recovered strongly, but the high cost of air travel to Africa and within Africa remains a barrier.
The head of state pointed out that today, Rwanda welcomes many visitors who come to visit the country to enjoy the unique natural beauty, to attend sports events and participate in different gatherings. The president reiterated that Rwanda made the commitment to implement the single Africa air transport market in a bid to ease travel for Africans. He sees the continent as an important contributor to global tourism sector.
Africans are the future of global tourism as our middle class continues to grow at a fast pace in the decades to come. We must work closely together with partners like you to continue developing Africa into a premier destination for global travel.
Tanzanian President Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan noted that the African continent and tourism are inseparable, hence the need for efforts to further develop the sector. President Samia Suluhu Hassan tasked African countries to strive to write their own stories amidst misleading information globally.
Africa should continue to prioritize sustainable tourism practices by minimizing the environmental footprint of tourism activities, promoting the conservation of natural resources, and supporting community-based tourism initiatives. We in Africa should emphasize on ecotourism, which promotes responsible travel to natural areas, contributing to conservation efforts, and providing sustainable economic benefits to local communities.
In a yet-to-be-launched report on tourism in Africa, it is stated that travel and tourism could increase Africa's GDP to $50 billion by 2033 and create 6 million more jobs. However, this will require employing the right approach and galvanized efforts of investment. To the technology side of tourism, the participants of the World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit that is taking place in Kigali believe that artificial intelligence will play a big role in making this sector more developed in the coming years. Adam Skuzera.
On the panel discussion of the World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit, the key speakers also focused on the performance of technology in the development of this sector of tourism, particularly on the use of artificial intelligence. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, Yves Iradukunda, emphasized the role of AI in technology has played in various sectors of the economy in the country, where he pointed out on how it is currently being used in the domestic tourism.
All the efforts we have done over the years of digitizing the economy, infrastructure, systems, service deliveries to citizens, AI is changing how we deliver all of that. The traditional systems are not fast. They don't offer the opportunity to tailor-make experiences for the citizens. They limit the experience that a citizen can go through. So we can see a rapid change because of the data sets that we have available for us as government. But the part on innovation is where we also look at the private sector. And we are seeing a lot of applications, particularly driven by AI and now going to predictive analytics to be able to, for businesses, to be able to increase profitability and competitiveness, but also for individuals to be able to have a bit more control of the choices they can have, talking about the consumer experiences, but also the choices to filter through marketing that they have.
One of the most important reasons for the development of the tourism sector at the world level is to promote it through advertising. The managing director of travel at Google, Nelson Boyce, also noted that the future of this sector is mainly based on artificial intelligence.
I mean, the whole thing about AI, the beauty of it in terms of the future, it's able to cater for what I want right here, right now. On the creative side, I mean, I know that I can watch an advert or a movie the way I like it, even though it wasn't created. And I think there was a lot of debate in Hollywood about it, and everybody, you know, looked at it.
They went on strike about it.
Yeah, but that's what's going to happen, because ultimately it's very much a one-to-one personal. I mean, our company is working on AI. We use AI for performance and stuff, and that's, you know, the easy entry level. Efficiency, improvements, etc. It does help, it's great from a company, but ultimately it's about the end consumer and their preferences. And that's where AI is going to be great.
Despite the fact that there is a gap in the use of this technology on the African continent, Yves Iradukunda finds that the continent should strive to make better choices in improving its AI technology in various sectors, including tourism.
You know, AI tools may come up with, particularly when you look at the list, the cultures that may have list data sets, whether it's the language data sets that enable to translate the different cultural sensitivities. So we face that. So it goes back to the regulation, the choices we may have to make in terms of how far we push AI, but also not forgetting that human element. At the end of the day, tourists or travelers want to have that interaction. So how far do we want to go? I think it's a choice to have to make.
In order to achieve the country's goal of becoming a hub of technology in the region by 2050, the cabinet meeting that took place on 20th April this year approved a national artificial intelligence policy. Adam Skuzera, RTV News.
Still on the Travel and Tourism Council taking place here in Kigali, earlier today, the World Travel and Tourism Council announced the African Report on the Tourism Activities, which highlighted the performance of this sector in the last 10 years that was marked by a high increase in travel and tourism investment that was made on this continent. Adam Skuzera files more on this report.
Well, on the sidelines of this World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit that is happening here in Kigali, there have been a launch of the Africa report on the tourism activities that highlighted a very massive increase of 250% that was found in tourism and travel investment here on this continent in the last 10 years. In her remarks, President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, Julian Simpson, noted that this increase was significantly contributed by some of the African countries that took this travel and tourism sector as one of the major key players in their economy's growth.
But actually, the carbon footprint from technology globally is now more than it is from airlines. So, and that is not to blame another sector. It's just the reality, the big data centers that we have all over the world. So when we're searching, you know, the latest football scores or something. So I think it's about putting things into proportion. And as Arnold said, that if you travel well, you can actually be regenerative, because travel and tourism, it boosts economies. And that's not just about business and, you know, people writing numbers, it's about real jobs. Those are the jobs that we were showing there. And in some countries, those jobs, we have a better record in our sector of lifting people out of poverty than in almost any other sector. And we have a better record of employing people that sometimes have had very basic education and actually educating them and training them within the sector. So travel and tourism is a real power for good for the Gen Z generation.
Well, this report also reiterated on the continent's journey in the recovery of COVID-19 pandemic. However, they also pointed out on the continent's baseline forecast of more than $300 billion that is expected to be generated from this sector in the next 10 years. Adams Kwizera, RTV News, here at Kigali Convention Center.
As we started saying, it's a tourism celebration day, and we won't keep it far from that. Tourism service providers say that there has been steady increase in establishing needed infrastructure, hence contributing to the development of the sector. Tourism accounts for 50% of Rwanda's GDP. The Rwanda Development Board, RDB, says, better service delivery increases traffic of foreign tourists visiting the country. We have more on this report.
Figures from the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda indicate that in the first quarter of this year, the country's gross domestic product increased by 9.2%, with the service sector increasing by 13%, as the output from hotels and restaurants alone increased by 42%. The meetings hosted by Rwanda in the first 6 months of this year contributed to a 44% increase on the total tourism contribution to Rwanda's GDP. Tourism service providers expressed optimism following the setbacks imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The number of hotels have increased, and many investors are venturing into the sector. Hotels are not expensive as before, and prices are relatively affordable. People no longer fear to hang out from hotels and do gatherings that they used to do from their homes in different hotels. Last year, 2022, the tourism sector generated $445 million compared to $164 million in 2021, representing a 171.3% increase. Residents appreciate the revenue sharing scheme, which ensures that communities living around the country's national parks receive 10% of all tourism revenue. We owe it to tourism and the good leadership of our country that have helped us in so many ways, including enhancing hygiene. Whenever we go to Musanze town, people can tell that we are from Kinigi, so it is different from before, and we won't go back. The Rwanda Development Board CEO, Francis Gatare, noted that the country remains committed to boosting the sector, stressing that the visa on arrival policy is making a great contribution.
I must remind you that Rwanda was the first country, in fact, in the world, to open up for every citizen of the world to travel to Rwanda without prior application for a visa, to get a visa on arrival and for the majority to enter Rwanda without requirement for a visa. In fact, for all the African passport holders, they can move, live, and work in Rwanda uninterrupted. What all this means is that Rwanda is a welcoming country to travel to, but to live in.
Rwanda's tourism revenues amounted to $498 million in 2019, the highest recorded revenue from the sector. The country targets a total tourism revenue of $600 million.
Still speaking about the Global Summit of World and Travel and Tourism Council, various topics discussed also focused on the sustainability of the tourism industry globally. And in an exclusive interview, our colleague Olig Nete had with Julia Simpson, President and CEO of World Travel and Tourism Council, delved deep into the critical subject of sustainability within the tourism sector, sharing her insights and vision on paving the way for a more sustainable future in travel and tourism.
We would like to talk about sustainability in tourism, something that you talked about, but what is the WTTC's vision for ensuring sustainable tourism, and how do you think the industry can make it?
One of the most important things about Rwanda is Rwanda's record on conservation and on regenerative, sustainable tourism. I know that all your viewers will know about your mountain gorillas, and you probably think you take that for granted, but what has been done has been incredible, because Rwanda has charged a premium to go and see these beautiful animals. And with that premium, they've been able to give some money back to the local community, back to the farmers, and the farmers are then happy to allow a degree of reforestation. That's what we call a circular, sustainable model in terms of travel and tourism. The other thing I would say is travellers desperately want to see beautiful nature. So if you like, a business traveller's product is beautiful nature. So the last thing we want to do is damage that in any way. We want to protect it, and we also want to, when we're in Africa, really be able to showcase the authentic side of Africa, and that is the natural beauty. One thing that we're doing at WTTC is we're looking at what is our real impact, what is our footprint in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And we can now measure that even by Rwandan standards. What is it? So one of the areas we're looking at is electrification of vehicles. Getting the old diesel vehicles, I come from London, we used to have these old black taxis that were pumping out, diesel fumes, trying to replace petrol and diesel vehicles with electric vehicles. So that is one of the things that Travel and Tourism wants to invest in to help. Also, when people come to Rwanda, they often come by air, and air travel is what they call a hard-to-abate area, and what we mean by that is it's very, very hard to replace jet fuel, the fuel that's used to fly aircraft, but there is something, and it's called sustainable aviation fuel, and we've been encouraging all governments to look at how they can produce sustainable aviation fuel that we call SAF, because that dramatically reduces the carbon footprint. And finally, sustainability isn't just about greenhouse gas emissions. It's not just about the wonderful species and nature and animals that we love and want to protect. It is about people. And travel and tourism is a great motor for the economy because it boosts GDP, which means it also creates jobs. And the great thing about hospitality and travel and tourism is it can attract top-end jobs in tech, in engineering, in finance, in marketing, but it also provides opportunities for people that may not have been fortunate enough to have a formal education. And it actually trains and educates people, and it gets people out of an informal economy into the formal economy. So there's lots of wins.
So in your perspective, what investments are needed on the African continent to boost the tourism industry on the continent of Africa?
Travel and tourism in Africa is going to be growing at double the rate of the general GDP growth in Africa. It's going to be growing at over 5%, and the general rate of growth in the economy across the continent is about 2.6. So first of all, it's already booming. It's going to be, after Asia Pacific, it's the fastest growing area for travel and tourism. But there's so much more potential. If Africa could deal with some of the issues, first of all, air connectivity. You know, I was talking today to the president of Tanzania, and they were saying that if they want to go to Senegal, they have to go via Paris. So we need airlines within Africa that fly within Africa, and that is doable. Now, airlines work on very, very narrow margins, so they will not put expensive aircraft in areas unless they can make some kind of return on their investment. But it is doable. We need the will of a few governments in Africa to come together and support the creation of a regional African airline. That's number one. The other thing is to streamline visa processes. Some of the visa processes in Africa, you know, it's silly to have someone in Ghana needing to get a long, complicated paper visa to go to South Africa. Now, we've spoken to the wonderful minister in South Africa, and she's changing those things. She's really got a grip of it. But again, it's a bit of an own goal. You know, if you look at Europe, they have something called the Schengen area, and people, whatever country you are in Europe, you can travel visa-free between Europe. That is where we want to get to with Africa.
Yes. One last question as we sum up today's interview. We can't end this without talking about responsible tourism practices. What challenges are you facing to ensure responsible tourism practices, and what are you doing to make sure that it happens?
Well, first of all, if you want to control something, you have to be able to understand what is happening. So we are giving the world this incredible data that we've actually worked on with Saudi Arabia has helped fund it, and they want to gift it to the world. And first of all, we can now count exactly what are the issues. So we talked about electric vehicles. We also need to look at renewable energies. And in Africa, you've got enormous resources, a lot of sunshine, sometimes a lot of hydropower as well. How can we replace some of the traditional oil and gas reliance and replace that energy with renewables? So we're looking at travel and tourism of how we can support Africa shift more to renewable energy.
Thank you very much, Olive Nete, for the insightful interview. Now into the service delivery. As you already know, recently the Rwanda Governance Board released the scorecard report, and service delivery was one of the sectors that still need to step up in terms of efforts if the country is to achieve the needed goals. Some of the residents say that even though there has been a progress in the betterment of service delivery in the private sector, they request that a more efforts need to be applied, especially in some of the government institutions.
In World Market Connect, in a way of solving the problem of service delivery, we have come to help people to be connected to the world market, whereby everyone that needs a car, as we have been saying it before, you need a car for rent, you need a car for buying, you want to sell your car, it's very easy. You can visit our website and then you register yourself, and we can be able to advertise for you and make your product, your service, your property be sold in an easy way. Everyone, at any place you are, you can access whatever you want. You can reach every customer, or you can reach the buyer you need, someone to buy your property, or you want to sell your thing, or you want to make it for rent. It is very easy, so you can do it wherever you are, whether you are at home, on your laptop, using your telephone, or it's very easy these days. It's not like in the old days where someone could go travel a long distance looking for a house to buy or looking for a plot of land. Now it has been brought so close.
And some of the dominant private service providers point out that a poor service delivery has a negative impact on the development of business and a country as a whole.
Between the government services and private services, there is some difference because private services, they are very careful, because they are very careful and humble because they after money. Because many people work in private things, they get some percentage from the bosses. That's why they work hard, and that's why they maintain that constant of service. That's why many times we choose to be in a private. Let me first appreciate the service I got here, because they have much respect for the customers. They wish us a welcome very well and very protocol, which is very, very fantastic. And what I can tell the people here, they have a good harbors in Saona, seriously.
And security is one of the reasons why Rwanda is able to host international conferences where participants can have access to different services, including tourism destinations, hotels, bars, restaurants, and tourism is a major source of income for the country.
Some of the youth demonstrate that the role of the research is critical in eradicating genocide ideology. Statistics demonstrate that Rwandans who still saw genocide ideology and device politics are on an 8.6% rate. Prince Manzi with more.
In the National Research-Based Dialogue organized by Aegis Trust that brought together the youth, researchers and policymakers, some of the youth demonstrate various issues including the genocide ideology in families and social media.
Because this ends them, ends everyone, pushes everyone in the young generation to face challenges of mental health. The world is being driven by media, and now media is pushing young people to, it's actually feeding them. So this is actually a challenge, but the interest is there, but they are still limited by other sources. Media feeds them information. Those who have interest are not able to access enough side-by information.
Clever Irakoze of Aegis Trust points out that bringing together people ranging in different generations for discussions, this helps in finding solutions to various issues hindering the unity and resilience of Rwandans.
kugira ngo tuganire kuri izi ngingo z'ingenzi tugamije cyane cyane kugira ngo urubyiruko
for discussing on various topics aiming at having the youth learning from the elders and the elders to understand problems faced by the youth. All of these are for finding solutions for sustainable peace. Statistics demonstrate that Rwandans who still saw genocide ideology and device politics are on an 8.6% rate. Professor Ajeshyaka Mugabe, a researcher and lecturer at the University of Rwanda, demonstrates that even though this rate might seem low, measurements are to be taken, hence emphasizing the role of researchers.
Genocide ideology is not something that you can count in terms of numbers. So it is a poison. We need to consider it as a poison and address it from a qualitative perspective. The role of the research, as usual, is to inform policy based on rigorous research findings or methodology approaches that generate knowledge, which knowledge is disseminated and given to policy-making institutions for the next step. And this is the reason why you see different policies being improved, being changed, sometimes being revitalized.
The Rwanda Investigation Bureau demonstrates that the number of genocide ideology cases decreased from 536 cases in 2019 to 336 cases in 2023.
Yes, and that was it from us here at the Rwanda Broadcasting Agency, RBA, on RTV News. On behalf of the entire news production as well as the technical team, many thanks for being with us. My name is Sam Kadisa.
And mine, Martina Vera.
We'll say up until next time.
Stay safe.
And have a great evening.